Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolf Pit with another episode of What Are We Eating? Today we're going over Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder, which is the soup that eats like a meal. Although I personally prefer Manhattan Clam Chowder, I gotta admit, New England Clam Chowder is a classic and it's delicious, as long as it's made right. And when I mean made right, I mean it's not potato soup with just a few pieces of clams in it. New England Clam Chowder should be very simple. Hearty, creamy, rich, delicious, and full of clams. You should savor the flavor of the sweet, briny, tender clams. Other than lots of black pepper and oyster crackers, nothing else should be needed. But for some reason, Campbell's thought it was a good idea to make classic New England clam chowder with Maryland's favorite seasoning, Old Bay. Now don't get me wrong, besides the given of crabs, shrimp, and fish, I like to put Old Bay on almost anything, to include, but not limited to, Maryland fried chicken, French fries, or if you're from Maryland, they'd be Thrasher's boardwalk fries, deviled eggs, popcorn, or again, if you're from Maryland, it would be Fisher's popcorn or Dolly's popcorn on the boardwalk, and of course Bloody Marys. Can you see the trend now? Old Bay is a Maryland thing, not a New England thing. So Campbell's, you might want to tread lightly, but I, the person, am still going to try both of Campbell's Chunky New England style clam chowder and Campbell's Chunky New England clam chowder seasoned with Old Bay. For you, the people, so you don't have to. Starting off with the Campbell's Chunky New England clam chowder, which weighs in at 18.8 ounces and costs $1.98. which fills you up right and it catches you on the hearty side. Here's the list of ingredients, and there's a couple things that stand out. The first thing that stands out is monosodium glutamate, also known as MSG. I love the fact that it contains MSG, but some of you, the people, seem to have adverse reactions to MSG. So if you are one of those, the people, you might want to shy away from Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder. Another ingredient that I find very odd in New England clam chowder is soy sauce. I know that in some cases, soy sauce can be used as a flavor enhancer, but that's what the MSG is for. And then the final ingredient I thought was a little bit odd is cod. But since they don't enlist the ingredients in the clam stock, I'm going to assume there's cod in the clam stock. Again, they try to break the serving size of one can of soup into two. But the average one of you, the people, is gonna eat the whole can, just like me. So the whole can of soup has 390 calories, 22 grams of total fat, 3 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 15 milligrams of cholesterol, 1,720 milligrams of sodium, 35 grams of carbohydrates, 4 grams of fiber, 2 grams of sugars, and 12 grams of protein. So here's our Campbell's Chunky New England clam chowder right out of the can and right into the bowl. And now it goes into the microwave for 2 to 2.5 minutes until heated through. Now I've had Campbell's Chunky New England clam chowder several times in my life and I know what to expect. Mediocre, overly thickened, heavy on the potatoes, and very light on the clam chowder. Besides it being your basic New England clam chowder out of a can, it's also your basic New England clam chowder you'd pay $5 for a cup or $8 for a bowl in a restaurant. So since Campbell's came out with a New England style clam chowder seasoned with Old Bay, we're going to season their regular New England clam chowder with Old Bay first before trying their version of the Old Bay New England clam chowder. So after heating the Campbell's Chunky New England clam chowder, we season very liberally with Old Bay, and then give it a good mix. Got a big old spoonful, and then into the old pie hole, and down the gullet it went. And to be perfectly honest, it was much better than I expected. You get the very hearty, very creamy, overly thickened potato soup with a hint of clams, enhanced by the Old Bay. But we gotta be fair to Old Bay. Old Bay could make a turd taste good. I cannot either confirm or deny that statement, but I can attest that Old Bay is good on almost anything. In moderation, a little Old Bay is fantastic. Too much is too much. Now let's try the Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder seasoned with Old Bay, which is a bold twist on a hearty classic. Here's a list of ingredients, and two things stand out on this list of ingredients compared to the original New England Clam Chowder. Number one is there's no MSG. Number two is there's no cod. How can you have clam stock if you don't beat your cod? Did they change the whole recipe just because of the Old Bay? This is a little bit fishy, pun intended. For the whole can of Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder seasoned with Old Bay, there's 390 calories, 20 grams of total fat, 3 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 15 milligrams of cholesterol, 1,820 milligrams of sodium, 40 grams of carbohydrates, 7 grams of fiber, 3 grams of sugars, and 12 grams of protein. So here's our Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder seasoned with Old Bay, right out of the can, right into the bowl, and right into the microwave for 2.5 minutes. Now here's our Campbell's New England Clam Chowder seasoned with Old Bay after microwaving for 2.5 minutes. Now the color of the Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder seasoned with Old Bay compared to the regular Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder is very disconcerting. How much Old Bay did they have to put into this to make it change from normal looking white New England Clam Chowder to pinkish to reddish New England Clam Chowder? So we gave it a mix, got a big old spoonful, and then into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. Surprisingly, it wasn't too bad, but it also wasn't too great either. I thought the flavor was quite weird. It did not taste like Old Bay whatsoever. However, I got very subtle flavors of the seasonings in the Old Bay, like celery salt, red pepper, and maybe cinnamon. The exact ingredients of Old Bay are not really known, but that's my best guess with flavor. Neither can of the Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder were bad. If you, the people, served me, the person, with either can of Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder, I would happily eat it. I wouldn't love it, but I would eat it. But if I had my druthers, I would much prefer the regular New England Clam Chowder with loads of black pepper and oyster crackers over the New England Clam Chowder with Old Bay. If I want Old Bay in my clam chowder, I would much prefer to add it on my own. So I'm giving the regular Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder a 5 out of 10, and the Campbell's Chunky New England Clam Chowder seasoned with Old Bay a 4 out of 10. I just think the whole canning process messed up the flavors of the Old Bay. And just a reminder for you, the people, if you haven't already, check out my Amazon wish list, which is in the description of this video, to see if there's something on there you'd like to pick up for me, the person, to try in a video, and I'll sponsor that video in your name. Thank you all very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.